model of how you can use or what you can do in your organizations, your teams, your system to really change the dynamics a little bit, right? To refocus on what really matters and not the superficial side of things. Um, so there are a few containers that I will share with you. One thing I will say though is this session is very little to do with Agile, but very applicable to Agile and everything else, right? So just hold on to that because I will put you through your paces very shortly, okay? Um, right, this is called smoky mirrors. What's the real goal here? One of the containers that we will have before we get going is we are not going to use the word agile in this workshop. Agile is banned. And when you go into your breakout rooms, I would like you to nominate someone in your breakout room that will keep a counting or counter of the many times the word agile is used. Okay, because it's very important. We're going to use that at some point. Um, uh, so I'll set the scene on that one. So before we go into it, we'll do a few breakouts. There's two of them that we'll do. In between that, I'll share everything else that we need to do as well, and then you can do more work. But how did this come about? As Anu was saying, having worked with lots of organizations and teams, very often than not, the conversation starts from um, the stance of we want to do agile, right? Engaging organizations, the whole agile perspective or the whole agile thing has kind of been right too front loaded, which makes a lot of organizations or even leaders not truly understand what it is that they care about and what it is that they actually truly want. So it was in, I think it was 2018 or something like that. It was in Global Scrum Gathering, Vienna. And there's this session or this facilitated event called Open Space. I don't know how many of you know what that is. And in there, I put up this topic about creating a space to talk about Agile is not the end goal. And that's where this birthed from. So Agile is not the end goal. I would say that again so that it can resonate. Right. And this session is about that smoky mirror. So the Agile bit is the smoky mirror and it's not the end goal. So what we're gonna do, I'll share my screen so that you can all see what I'm talking about. I'll share my screen really quickly, and then we can get cracking in here, and then present. What's the real goal? So our evening will look a bit like this. So I will explain what this looks like. We'll gather some data. We'll go into breakout room, have some conversations around that by generating insights on the questions and the prompts that I will give you in your breakout rooms. We'll come back. When we come back, we'll do a quick debrief about what showed up for you and what transpired in your session, in your conversations, in your breakouts. And then I'll talk about the hooked method and a co-creation guide that I've put together to help organizations and the teams I coach really bring the true focus of what it is that we're after, what it is that they're after, right? Because every organization is a client in its own right. As professional coaches or as aspiring professional coaches or agile coaches, in that sense, we ought to treat every single client or every single organization just like a client, right? A professional client that you're working with and helping them achieve their goals. And the essence of the co-creation side of things is where you really tap into the creativity, the insights, the awareness, and the future possibilities of creating all of this that is needed for the client, what it is that they truly want, right? So I'll share that. And then we'll go into another breakout. Then you have a conversation about what I've shared, whether that resonates or whether it doesn't, and potentially how does this make us or help us show up differently as coaches, as scrum masters, as technical managers, as who we are in what we're doing with clients and our organizations. And then we're going to close the stage, and everyone can enjoy the rest of the evening and put your feet up, have your nice beverages, that your preferred beverages of choice, right? So before we go into the first breakout room, I won't give much away, but Anu is going to do her magic. Depends on how many people we have in on the call right now. And apologies to LinkedIn live streamers and Instagram and Facebook, because you will not be able to participate in the breakout rooms. But I would like you to take a picture of this question as you go into your, or this slide, as you go into your breakout rooms. And the containers that we'll be working on the left here, as you can see, like I said, there is no use of the word agile in your breakout room. Nominate someone who will actually keep count of how many times agile is said in your breakout room, and really strive to not use that word because it's overused and it gets in the way. Quite frankly, it always does get in the way. And in your groups, discuss these questions and these prompts. So use your current system in your about is agile this, agile that, agile this, agile that. Even going to see or interviews, whatever it is that you're experiencing, you're just all you can hear is agile, right? Are you experiencing? How are you dealing with it if you are experiencing it? How are you dealing with it, or how have you dealt with it in the past if you have experienced it and it's a bugbear for you too? And just a thought, maybe a prefix to what we're about to see or what I'll show you. Just have a think and have a thought about what is possible, right? If this thing, this A thing, word, and it's what it is, doesn't get in the way. What is possible? Just have a little double there and have a quick conversation. We will have 10 minutes in this first breakout session. I will come in and out, so you will see me pop up here and there. But please have fun, just indulge with it, experiment in this, and just have a go. And then when we come back, I will share with you what I've prepared for you, and then we'll go again. Okay. Anu is going to. Right, 10 minutes.
More people join.
And sort of what showed up and what transpired in the conversations you had in your group. If you were able to have conversations, and just say a word or two.
Should I go on behalf of Group 4? We had a very, very interesting conversation, and we started off by agreeing on the alternative word. We came up with flow, and as a proxy, we came up with fluidity. Flow as in things moving on quickly. We actually adopted a slightly different approach by focusing on the third question: what is possible if it doesn't get in the way? One person said anything is possible. One person said you take away from using the forbidden word takes us away from doing and shifts us to being. So by not using that word, we don't focus too much on doing. Instead we concentrate on us being. So we're just who we are. So on the first question, where you've experienced this before, what was highlighted is the word most. Most organizations on this journey, this transformation journey towards fluidity or flow, tends to use the word constantly without even thinking about what it means. On the second question about how they dealt with it, there was a very good segue from the where to the how they coped with it. And one prominent point made there was, rather than focusing on that word we don't want to mention, concentrate on the why. Why are you doing this? And as a final point, we've got no counters for having used the word at all. it didn't
Wow.
come up.
Wow. Wow. That's impressive. Group 4. That's impressive. But I just want to say, pretty much everything you summarized and you touched on, you hit the nail on the head. You will see in the next slides in a sec as well. Hit the nail on the head. Fantastic work. Anyone else? Just one more voice. If not, we carry on. Now
Yeah, for group 6. Can I just share for group 6? So group
Please.
6, we had different opinions. Somebody's new to the word and has come here to learn more about it. So they didn't have much to say. They've heard it a lot, but they don't really understand it. Now, somebody has heard it being used at work quite frequently, but with no real evidence of what it means. And another person has the opposite experience where work is saying, stop throwing that word around. What does it really mean? And then they have decided to concentrate on the doing and being rather than the ubiquitous use of the word everywhere. So yeah, I guess at the end of the day, it's not the word itself that does the job. It's what you're doing to change ways of working and make things flow better. That should be the emphasis. Otherwise, people get bored with the word being thrown around.
Absolutely, spot on. Right, wonderful. This is great work. This is absolutely brilliant. Thank you. And again, you hit the nail on the head as a group as well. So very quickly, what I'll share with you is these principles that I'm about to talk you through have also been adopted by some of the professional coaching competencies that there are that I've been working on, I'm learning and doing. I've been using this with most of my clients, if not all of them. This is essentially the stance that I take on. This is not an acronym as hook. It's a play on word because the thing I'm about to show you just looked like a hook, right? And I thought, hook, let's call it that, right? So to group 4's point, they made something point about focusing on the why. That's critical, right? If you are sat in front of a coach, very often than not, the first question they'll ask you is, what do you want? Right? They'll ask you, what do you want? You don't talk about the solutions right away. They don't ask you about your solutions, right? So having that question of what do you want as a prefix to anything else, like conversation you're about to have, is quite important, right? What I've seen and what has transpired and what you're sharing, some organizations have gone from, let's not even use this word in here because we just want to focus on doing and being, to the group in group 4 also saying the emphasis is around being and doing rather than just the word or even just looking at flow and fluidity. The word that we're not about to use, we're not supposed to use, has been overused and almost like a hammer being used for every single solution that every organization is looking at. That's not the case, right? So what you're looking at here at the beginning of any co-created conversation or co-creation that you want to have, or even an engagement or a conversation with a client, a leader, a team, right? A coachee, a mentee that you have in front of you, seek first the stance of curiosity. What is it that you want? What is it that you want to achieve, right? That simple question opens up options, opens up the conversation, starts to emerge clarity, insights, awareness. That's where it starts from, right? And then there's this point about really solidifying the value of the what, right? Why is it important that this thing that you want, why is it important for you? Again, if it's a coaching conversation, you figure out a way to ask that value question of the why. If you feel that you can use, if it's a team session or other conversation that you want to use the why, do, but be careful with why questions. But if this is what we want and this is why it's important for us, right? That's a valid question. We're doing something and we're blinded by our own biases and our own needs and our own desires, right? So asking the question, who benefits from this thing that we think we want and we believe is so important, who benefits, right? Generate insights, gather the data from that. And then you start to go into who are we becoming? So that being point, I was starting to wonder if Femi in group 4 had actually seen my slides. Who are we becoming? Who are we being in this change, right? So the who benefits, even us as individuals or coaches or working and helping this system or this team or this client, who are we becoming in this change, right? This helps really go beyond the tangibles and the what's and the capabilities and the Kanbans and the scrums, and this is not that, right? This is about us as the entity, the individuals and the people within this change. Who are we becoming, right? And then you go on to how will we achieve it? What are the capabilities that we might have to enable us to achieve the what that we want and the why we think it's important and the who that benefits? How are we going to achieve this, right? And then you go on to when. You can start asking me questions about, okay, when do we need to do this? And when will we do it? It's a difference of when do we need to do this and when we will do it, right? It's the difference there. So this goes into your time boxing. You can put things in there. Some will say, interesting, you have outcomes kind of on the tip of this hooked thing. Sometimes I've found that it's quite hard work trying to ask clients and organizations, what is the outcome you're looking for? Sometimes I found it quite challenging because they don't know. They just simply don't know the outcomes. Because if you don't know what you want and why it's important, you don't even know what the outcomes should look like and feel like and be like, right? That's why I've inverted this personally. It's a bit more of a it's a bit less of a heavy lifting when I ask the outcome question or I project this or I map this in the conversation that we're having in the co-creation session, when the outcome comes last for me in this scenario. How would we know we've got it? And this is the outcome question. Right, so this is the premise or the purpose of the hooked method. Please take a picture right now because potentially in the next meetup, in the next breakout, you would need this. So take a picture quickly before I go to the next slide because I'm going to share a few things around this, some of the things that you could do there. Hopefully you have. So using what you've seen in the hooked, right? In that hook approach, the what and the why. So what is it that we want? Why is it important? Again, it's all about the clarity on the desire, what we want. We desire something to happen. So that's the middle. You start from there, right? So clarity or clarify impact and reach with techniques like impact mapping. Again, this is where I'm trying to maybe aid with some techniques and approaches that you might use. Impact mapping, causal loop diagrams, and really look at turning problems or problem statements into opportunities. Sometimes, very often than not, I'm working with clients and teams looking at solution focused. Rather than calling something problem statements, we're calling them opportunities. We're looking at it with the look at opportunity, solution focused. What this your frontal lobe as individuals, this is where we can really visualize new possibilities. This is where we visualize new futures, right? And that's what you want to tap into for co-creation, for innovation, for creativity, insights, innovations, and awareness, and things like that. That's the questions you want to ask. You want to ask solution-focused questions, visualize it. What do we see? What do we want? What do we feel, right? The question about who benefits, just moving my video here to the bottom, who benefits, and who can influence it as well, right? You use the relevant, appropriate techniques. Here, not to prescribe exactly, this is not a definitive list, you can see etc. in many places, right? You can use the appropriate technique and appropriate tool to understand who is it that we are doing this for. And eventually you can even go further and ask, why are we doing this for them, right? Who benefits and who are we becoming? So deep democracy, if you know it, stakeholder stakeholder engagement piece, volunteering as well. You can use spheres of influence to really understand who can really influence and who is it that we need to engage and pull into the spheres of influence that we can work with closely, right? That's some of the things that you can do there. How will we achieve it? Capabilities. This is where you start to go into. I wouldn't even go as far as looking at full on Scrum or full on Kanban or whatever it is, lean practices, lean startup. I would start with practices first, right? If you take Scrum and you lift it all up, I see if you can imagine all the components, all the parts of Scrum, underneath it all, practices that you can adapt, you can use. When I work with teams and we're co-creating, we don't start with a framework. We don't start with a method. We start with these questions, what it is that we want, why is it important, and how are we going to achieve this? Then we start to look at, oh, okay, it'd be great to have daily syncs or something like that, right? So we need a daily standard, right? Okay, that's it. You got it? Artifacts. What else? And then we co-create bottom up rather than taking frameworks right from the top and then it just restricts. You have to start from the what do you want, right? Prioritizing time box. You can use your own appropriate time boxing techniques. Prioritizing techniques and time boxing examples by a feature, value versus risk. There are many tons, right? So we will not dwell on there. Outcomes. This is the bit that the outcomes piece. Once you've understood all of this, then you answer the question, how will it look like? What are the outcomes we're looking for? How would we know we've got it? How will it look like? How would it feel like? Yeah, what it will sound like? What would it sound like when we've got it? All of these things help really bring more awareness, more insights, more data, more information to what we need to create and deliver value and benefit, right? And again, you use the appropriate techniques to clarify outcomes. OKRs are here. I'm not saying that's the only thing, but there are others. This is also one of them that might work in your organization. So this is some of kind of expanding on the hooped method. I just wanted to put some of these things around it so that it brings it to life a bit more. For you to, again, take a picture, please, because in the next, we're going to go for 10 minutes rather than 15, because we're going to do 15-minute breakout. We're going to go for 10 minutes again, but in your breakout room, again, do not use the A word. You've got pictures of the hook and the co-creation guide. These are the two questions that I would like you to discuss. If we are not talking about the A word and it's not blinding us and it's not the first thing that anyone talks about in any organization, but then we're talking about the things like, what do we want? Why is it important? Who benefits? How would we know that we've got it? How are we going to achieve it? Right? If we talk about these things and we ask these questions and we co-create in the sense of having the relevant people in the room and hearing from all the various voices, all the voices that matter need to have inputs into that. And that's what co-creation is about. Create the right environment, create the right space, have safety, allow the voices to be heard, right? And then you ask these questions rather than, are we doing Scrum or are we doing Kanban? That's not it. That's definitely not it, right? If you're asking these other questions, how does this change how we show up as coaches? How does it change how we show up as Scrum Masters or change agents or managers, or leaders, right? And in that conversation, the second question, maybe have your own self-reflective, you don't have to answer in your group. Do you notice any gap that you might want to grow in, right? This is, again, opportunity for growth, not problem. We'll look at it with a different lens. So take a picture, please, and then Anu will put us in the same groups so that it's easier for 10 minutes. And I'll do the same again. I'll travel around and see if there's any questions I can help with. But have these conversations based on what we've just talked about, and we'll debrief when we come back.
Ready? Go.
Brilliant. Yeah,
You're on mute. If you're saying something, you're mute.
No, I was just laughing about what Femi said.
Welcome back, everyone. So we've got 7 minutes, maybe 6 minutes, give or take, left. And very quickly, same as last time round, I'd like us to hear from a few voices. If you were able to have some meaningful conversation, that is, what showed up for you?
Okay, I'm happy to go first. We obviously explored the questions from quite a few different dimensions, but there's one thing that was inherent in the discussion, that putting the A word behind us, puts our focus on the moment, and it lets us sort of think about what matters the most instead of getting hung up in exactly the how. So the next thing is, it also puts us, the word is, if we remember, is just an enabler. It's supposed to steer us, or not necessarily be the de facto on the approach. Now, the last thing is the other question. So I answered the first one. Do you notice any personal capability stroke skill gaps for development? So if I was going to use some of the words that were used, not getting hung up, is that the units in personal gaps, personal capability or skill gaps in development? Maybe somebody in the team can help that one. I think I dropped the ball on that one. Femi.
Yeah. So I think one question we agreed to bring back to the class, to this room, which unfortunately due to time constraint, we're not going to go too much into today, but we can park it for another day. It's all well and good for a lot of us here who are mature on this journey. We can get away without even using the word, and we can get away with fluidity, flow, without using A. The big question is, for those who are starting their journey, who've been on courses, who've been structured along these lines, their mindset is the A word. How do they cope? Let's not get into it today, but let's take it away.
That's brilliant.
Or it's down to you. It's your show.
No, that's brilliant. But very quickly, yes, that's a great question, because it comes with maturity. It comes with immersion, being in it and being with it as well, and with your clients and that. And for those that are joining their journey, if there's anything that you want to take away in this, just have a keep that hooked thing. Again, it's not thick, it's questions, right? It's just curious questions from a stance of seeking to understand more and to generate insights for your client, for your teams, right? So yes, you've taken some courses, you learn, and you're really excited about this journey of the A word and the community that it's all about. But also have this as a printout, something that might help you. Just ask a question. Just ask the question. Okay, right. I hear you all. What do we want? Right. Just throw it out there, and then you will hear some pauses. You will see some insights, people thinking. It takes time, but yes, absolutely right. It will not be overnight, as we all know, with anything. But just be brave, be curious, and just ask it. If you want, just say, "Hey, I'm the new person just joining. I don't have enough experience, so excuse my question. It might be silly. There's no such thing as a silly. It's, if anything, it's just insights that get generated. But what is it that we actually want here, right? And why is this important for us? Just play it like that, and just. But absolutely right, Femi.
If I can borrow 30 seconds maximum, the other point we talked about specifically on the hooked model is it's not a cookie cutter approach. You don't have to follow that linearity. With expertise and with a level of professionalism, you can be responsive to the circumstance, the environment with the client. So, you don't necessarily have to do the how and the what and then finish the outcome. Our expertise allows us to ask the right questions at the appropriate time.
Yeah, that's right. So bring it like this. But ultimately, as long as you ask the questions, because essentially the what do we want, that's the premise to pretty much set the foundation, right? Because that's the thing that helps us with it. But the others, yes, absolutely right. Even the outcomes piece, if your system and your team and your organization have clarity around what it is, the outcomes they want, yes, use it, but navigate that in that sense. But I would say personally, what I've seen by asking all of those, and you're right, when the circular one, when I first did it as a meetup, that's the same point, is you can navigate based on what the current situation is in the conversation you need, but just bear in mind, everything on there gives you information and insights, which is key to your system and to your brand. But what do you want is important. Why is it important to us?
And I think it's important to say that the reason it's not a linear approach is it's a VUCA environment. Things are constantly changing.
Absolutely. Spot on. Okay. If there is there any final voice we want to hear? Any voice that is yearning to say something?
Can I do what I usually do? I'm looking at someone's face who's smiling and they appear as if they want to say something. I don't like to mention names, but Pooja, it appears you want to say something.
Oh, I just want to say it was very nice. Thank you. Even though I joined late. So I think it was fantastic. Very, very immersive. I love that word. Dancing in the moment. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. And Femi, I like your subtle, I don't want to name names, but Pooja, love it. Okay, so if there isn't any more voices, one final thing that I will leave with you all, I'm just going to share my screen again really quickly. One final thing that I'll leave with everyone is, as we close the stage, just reflective, right? This one is a reflective journaling for yourself. You may do that now or take a picture and reflect on it after the session. But what is it that you're taking away for you? Yeah, and what will you do differently? If you would notice as well, the questions that I've asked has been self, because change starts from us, right? I'm not interested in us changing others. So what is it that you are taking away for you? Or alternatively, if you want to ask a different question, what will you do differently? Right, so reflect on these just in your own personal time. We don't need to share back right now. We don't need to share it back, actually. This is a personal reflection. And I would like to say thank you. Any questions? I don't know if we have time for questions. My camera is just gone all blurry. Apologies.
Thank you, everyone.
I know have time for questions. Some quick questions, maybe, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah, if anybody wants to stay behind, ask question. Kwasi, if you have time, we'll be happy to take more questions. And oh, okay. Some people are sending their improvement to me, and I'm like, no, it's not meant for me. But thank you for sharing. I'm going to steal your improvements and use it. Well, but for those that can't stay behind, I just want to say a big thank you for joining Agile Africa platform today. And a big thank you to Kwasi for sharing with us a new perspective and also how we can shift our mindset A word to the hook method. So I've learned a ton today, and I believe everybody here has one or two takeaways and improvement that they would like to make in their Agile coaching journey or their professional journey, because this is not all about Agile. Whatever sector that you belong into, the hooked method works for you, even in your personal life, you know, family, whatever, it works in everywhere, everything. So thank you for those that can stay behind for Q&A. And Kwasi, my guy, thank you. We appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me on. It's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure. Okay, so questions, comments?